One of the things I've been realizing lately is that the wrong move rarely looks attractive because it promises some huge breakthrough. Most of the time, it looks attractive because it promises something much smaller. Relief. Relief from waiting. Relief from tension. Relief from feeling stuck. Relief from having to sit in the same situation for one more day and still act like patience is easy. And if I'm honest, that's usually where the danger begins for me. Not when I'm thinking clearly, not when I'm steady, but when I'm tired of waiting and part of me just wants to feel like something is happening. Hi, I'm JP, and I think one of the biggest dangers in a long season is not always chasing success too aggressively. Sometimes it's much simpler than that. Sometimes it's just reaching for relief in the wrong way. And the reason that matters is because the wrong move may feel good for a moment, but more often than not, it creates regret. Because afterward, I know what I should have done. I knew better. And now I'm left dealing with the delay that came from trying to escape the discomfort of waiting. I think relief becomes dangerous when your life already feels emotionally tight, when you're bored, when you feel restricted, when you know where you want to go, but you're not there yet. When you're still trying to build in the middle of responsibilities that do not feel like your final life. That's when relief starts sounding reasonable. Not because you've stopped caring about doing things properly, but because you've been carrying tension for a long time. And tension wears on people. It wears on patience. It wears on faith. It wears on discipline. So when something shows up that looks like it might break that tension, even briefly, the temptation is not always to ask, is this right? Sometimes the temptation is just to think, I need a break from this feeling. That's what makes relief so tricky. It doesn't always come dressed as rebellion. Sometimes it comes dressed as emotional survival. This is something I've had to become much more honest about. There are times when the wrong move feels emotionally right, not because it actually is right, but because it interrupts discomfort. That's what forcing a trade can feel like. It can feel like movement after too much stillness. It can feel like control when everything feels uncertain. It can feel like progress when waiting feels unbearable. And in the moment, that can be enough to make it look reasonable. That's the danger. Because when a move is emotionally relieving, your mind can start helping you justify it. You can start dressing impatience up as conviction. You can start calling relief opportunity. You can start telling yourself that maybe this is the moment things finally turn. But deep down, if I'm honest, there are times when I already know the truth. I know the trade is not really there. I know I'm leaning toward it because I'm tired of waiting. I know I'm trying to interrupt discomfort more than I'm trying to follow the plan. And that's where the real problem begins. What I've noticed is that relief, taken the wrong way, is usually expensive. Not always immediately, but eventually. Because the thing I reached for, in order to feel better for a moment, often ends up creating more delay than the original discomfort ever would have. That's what makes it so frustrating. You force a move because waiting feels heavy. You want something to happen. You want to feel like you're not stuck. And then afterward, instead of being further ahead, you're dealing with the consequences of the move you shouldn't have made in the first place. Now the relief is gone. The tension is back. And on top of that, there is regret. So the thing that promised to shorten the pain often extends it. That's what I mean by the cost of relief. It doesn't just fail to solve the problem. It often deepens it. It delays the very thing you were so desperate to move toward faster. If I'm honest, this is the part that stings the most. Not just the setback, not just the delay, not even just the fact that I forced something I shouldn't have. The part that hits hardest is the feeling that I knew better. That's what bothers me, because it means the issue was not lack of knowledge. It was not confusion. It was not ignorance. It was a moment where I traded what I already understood for the temporary relief of doing something. That's uncomfortable to admit, because it forces me to be honest about the real issue. Sometimes the problem is not that I don't know the right thing. Sometimes the problem is that the right thing does not give immediate emotional relief. And in that moment, part of me still wants relief more than alignment. That's the part I have to keep confronting. Because if I already know better, then the journey is no longer just about learning. Now it is about submission. Submission to the process. Submission to the plan and rules. Submission to God's timing, even when my feelings want something else. Now I want to say something clearly. I do not think the answer here is shame. I do not think the answer is to make one bad decision and spend the next few days beating myself up emotionally. That does not help. That does not build anything. That does not restore alignment. If anything, shame usually makes everything foggier. It makes you more emotional, not less. It pulls your attention downward instead of helping you come back into clarity. So when I say the worst part is I knew better, I do not mean I want to live inside that feeling. I mean I want to let it tell me the truth without letting it become my identity. There's a difference. The truth is useful. Condemnation is not. Regret can teach me something. Shame just tries to bury me in it. And I don't think that's what God is asking from me in moments like that. What actually helps me reset is much simpler than people might think. Prayer. And a little internal pep talk. That's it. When I feel that regret, when I feel that frustration, when I know I reached for relief the wrong way, I need to get quiet again. I need to pray. Not performatively, not dramatically, just honestly. I need to bring the failure, the impatience, the frustration, the regret, and put it back before God. Because prayer helps me step out of reaction and back into alignment. It reminds me that one mistake is not the whole story. It reminds me that I do not have to fix my regret by spiraling. And then there's the internal pep talk. Not fake hype, not pretending nothing happened, just telling myself the truth. You knew better. Now do better. Do not repeat it. Do not let one moment of impatience become the atmosphere of the whole season. Return to what you already know. That helps me. Because I don't need drama in that moment. I need clarity. I think one of the gifts of regret, when handled properly, is that it can sharpen resolve. It can remind you that the lesson is no longer theoretical. You've felt the cost. You know where that road leads. You know how expensive false relief can become. And because of that, you become more determined not to repeat it. That's where I want the episode to land. Not in fear, not in shame, not in self-attack, but in a more serious understanding of what relief costs when I reach for it the wrong way. Because sometimes the best thing regret can do is make you less available for the same mistake next time. Not because you become perfect, but because you become more honest, more aware, less easy to fool. And I think that matters, because part of maturity is not pretending temptation disappears. It's learning to recognize what it is really offering you and what it will really cost. This is something I'm learning slowly. Relief is not always mercy. Just because something gives me quick emotional relief does not mean it came from wisdom. Sometimes, relief is just interruption, a temporary break in the tension that creates a much deeper cost later. That's why I have to be careful. Because there are moments where what feels kind in the moment is actually harmful in the long run. And there are moments where what feels difficult in the moment is actually protection. Waiting can feel hard. Obedience can feel slow. Restraint can feel frustrating. But sometimes those are the very things preserving the future I say I want. That changes how I think about relief. Not all relief is good. Not all discomfort is bad. Sometimes the right move is the one that leaves the tension in place, because the tension is still doing honest work in me. I think the wrong move becomes dangerous because it doesn't usually look like destruction in the moment. It looks like relief. It looks like a chance to finally interrupt the frustration, a chance to feel like something is happening, a chance to step out of the discomfort of waiting. But afterward, the cost becomes clearer. Not just the delay, not just the setback, the deeper sting of knowing I knew better. And for me, the answer to that is not shame. It's prayer. It's honesty. It's resetting my mind and reminding myself that quick relief can be very expensive when it pulls me out of alignment. Because the truth is, I still want out. I still want freedom. I still want the life I'm building to become real. But I'm learning that reaching for relief the wrong way only delays the very thing I'm trying to reach. And I do not want relief badly enough to keep paying for it with lost time. I'm JP, and I'll see you in the next one.